Welcome to the All Things Circular podcast, your gateway to the circular economy. Hosted by industry experts Victoria Darcy and Rich Bulger. Every episode is proof that circularity isn't just good for the planet. It's a smart business decision. Our mission is simple: to empower, to inform, and to show you how to make the circular economy work for you.
Hello, welcome to another episode of All Things Circular. I'm Rich Bulger.
And I'm Vic Darcy.
And we are coming to you from the Reverse Logistics Association Conference and Expo. And we are joined today by one of the smartest people I know, Mr. Michael Beale. Michael, welcome to All Things Circular.
Thank you so much.
Tell our audience a little bit about who you are and what Tallgrass AI is.
Sure. Well, Tallgrass is basically a company that really seeks to future-proof the data that you currently have as your asset. So when it really comes time to sit down with visionaries like yourself, we're actually one or two steps ahead of you. What that really truly does is make your decision cycles equally as fast as, well, your ability to make decisions as a human leader.
Artificial intelligence and machine learning is kind of scary for some people.
Sure.
We've been hearing about AI and ML for quite some time, but now it starts to feel real. Generating an image with artificial intelligence used to be cool. Now it's kind of the standard, and I think everyone's editing with the AI interface at some point.
Sure.
So tell us a little bit about what AI is today.
Sure. So I think everyone has, especially people like myself, who have been doing this for really just fixing problems before AI. I think we've been using other terms like quantitative methods. Okay, and these are tools that were actually done on paper. This is how we won World War II. So you take those kinds of concepts, methods, proven true, clunky, but very effective, especially when you sit down with leaders. And again, any technology or method is worthless if you don't have a leader and a method. Okay, so Tallgrass got very good at first spend analytics, and then we realized that there's these things called products, and these products have a life cycle. So we were one of the first people that actually developed a product life cycle tracking capability, going all the way back to 2005. And we did this in a big way. We did this in cable companies. The technology was capable of indexing and keeping up with multi-million-dollar universes daily. But back to your question, right? If you really think about where we were then and where we are today, I always like to think that we were in a tactical sense to on the left, and AI going back 15 years ago. We all adopted AI when we jumped into our car, and there was actually nothing mechanically, touching the brake pedal anymore to the brakes or the steering wheel. There is a very intelligent AI. It's very tactical. Feedback loop, very easy. Turn left, car goes left. Very easy. But now start shifting, and now suddenly what we have is still tactical but expert systems. Brilliant machines. So again, very fast feedback loop, because it's doing what we want it to do. And then something changed. Okay, and this is when buzzwords really started coming out. And this is when Google started pioneering their AI, and they're tasking it to save energy. They're tasking it to step into a very large organic data set and to try to make sense of it, and then to turn and tell its humans that, hey, guess what? Here's a strategic thing that you can do better. And again, so as we push strategically, what's pushing back? Human culture. Because there was a plant manager that says, no. I am the best at what I do here. And guess what? That was one of the first. When I saw that white paper, they saved 30% on savings, just on cooling.
It's incredible. So, Rich and I are going to give you knowing nods, because in our careers, we've both come against naysayers.
Oh, yeah.
And we've both seen the power that one person can have to bring a whole house of cards down. But what I'd really like to do is delve a little bit deeper, because you've explained it brilliantly. But for those of us a bit like me who are a bit more newer to AI, a bit more
Sure.
Luddite, to use an expression, when I first saw the Tallgrass solution, I was blown away, because it solves problems. Ultimately, that's what it does. And it solves, you say complex problems, but actually it doesn't even have to be complex, right?
Yes.
Because lots of businesses have problems where they're doing their best to solve them. They're using the data that they have to hand, but those data are disparate. They may be in different systems. They're coming from different divisions.
Yes.
And that causes a problem in the aggregation of the data. So I think your solution, and I'd really like you to explain to our listeners just how you aggregate those different data points and what those outputs produce, because
Sure.
it really is quite phenomenal.
So I think, again, it's the garbage in, garbage out. It's very, very, very real. Very, very real. So it really comes down to harmonization. Okay, but you have to really step back. What is harmonization? So again, just rolling the clock back, one of the first spend engagements that, I mean, at a really high level, is I was introduced to basically 15 denominations, 3 different languages. And back then there's something called, there's different tables. In other words, the Chinese language doesn't play nice with how an ASCII table, sorry, it's a little technical, but it doesn't play very well nice. So all of that jargon, all of that love language became harmonization. So there wasn't really technologies to do this. I had to hire people that spoke Mandarin, Russian, and guess what? That wasn't good enough. Why? Because everyone has their jargon. Everyone has their special industry specific. And it wasn't that that there was common jargon, even though they're in the same industry and they do business. So that's when I really began to simply appreciate harmonization, building systems and processes. And again, a lot of the stuff was hard-coded back then. Okay, I mean, just to have standard conversions of denominations was a challenge, but those are things we perfected. So I love the data. You have to love the data. And I think I call it data literacy, right? And it's something that I'll enter a room and I like your term, sacred cows, right? Because back then, the IT departments held the keys to the data. They were the powerhouse. And if you weren't, and they were all sacred cows, and they protected the hierarchy. So the culture wasn't ready for Tallgrass 10 years ago. And it wasn't until, again, that we started really seeing cracks. And I tell you, what really did it is companies you've never heard of before are suddenly dominating, and companies are going to be around forever are gone. How's this? Why? How's this happening? So it was those lessons. So it was the changing of the guard. It was the natural changing of the guard that drove. And then, of course, we have COVID. We had a little bit of a recession. It's the pain and suffering. And also, I hate to say it, but you guys, we are the younger crew. It was the people that came above us in front.
I've been accused of that in the law.
I'm taking it for all it's worth.
Because again, it was you were supposed to go work for a big company, and you're supposed to work your way up, and that's how it was. And now suddenly there's this huge gap of capability, and now it's even worse now. I mean, you have young children. I have a 10-year-old daughter. She is absolutely brilliant. These are not normal children. They were born right at the right time, and they have this weird capability to really drive into technology. So I think that we are the changing of the guard, but now I think it is, now that we understand it, we understand the technology, and guess what we have? We have proven capabilities. So now we have both. It's time, and they want it. They want it because they want it. They know what Amazon is. They know why it exists, and their mentality is already 10 degrees away from us.
And they don't have the fear. I remember when I started at Verizon, my first job was I was hired in as a temporary employee from Adecco, and my responsibility was taking bill payments in a store in Columbia, South Carolina.
Sure.
So a customer would come in, I'd say hello, I'd shake their hand if they'd let me, I'd take a look at their bill, I'd analyze it to see it was their better rate plan, were they eligible to upgrade, I'd try to sell them an accessory because we had some cool contests. And I did a really good job taking bill payments, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
About 3 weeks into that job, Verizon put a machine in that store. And you know what that machine did?
Automated it.
It took bill payments. So my very first job got automated. And you go through and you say, well, hey, you're taking people's job. My value in that company did not end because my task got automated.
Yes.
I was able to go through 17 years later. I was able to do some amazing things that maybe I wouldn't have been able to do had my job not been automated. So when you're looking at these tools and technologies, you mentioned really good competitive reasons that if you don't do it, someone else will.
Yeah.
And this younger generation that's been growing up, not just with the internet, 1994 was when
Right.
Netscape came out with the first browser. So people born after
Yeah.
1994 don't know what life is like without the internet.
Which is crazy.
Our children, my 12-year-old will not know what life is like without artificial intelligence.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Kids born today, it's just how it's working.
It's there should be a science of what you had, because I mean, for me, I remember a life without a microwave.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I'm classic Gen X, born in the 70s.
Drinking from a hose out
Shouldn't be allowed.
back when the lights
Correct.
come on.
That was mine growing up. When do you come home? You come home when the street lights come on.
Yeah.
That was it, because there were no mobile phones.
Yes. And if you didn't show up, you were at a friend's house.
The weakest among us wound up on Unsolved Mysteries. It was a good time.
It
Very
was.
interesting, because I would quite like to press on something you've both said, because for you to turn around and say that your first job was automated, and also Michael, with what you were saying about the changing of the guard, I'm not quite so sure the guard has changed yet, because I still see protectionism everywhere, particularly in large corporates,
Yes.
because people fear for their jobs. And unlike you, because you've always been able to kind of see a path forward, some people can't. Some people fear change, and they fear that path forward. And rather than embracing the change, saying, well, that's going to allow me to learn and go here or grow, they fear that they're going to lose their job and end up, kind of in the rearview mirror almost, as life and technology takes over.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, is that something that you are up against as a solution?
It's okay. It's not that you're up against it. It's just, this is part of business, to be honest with you. If you're going to step into the room and claim that I have a better way forward for you, today you have to prove it. You have to prove it. You have to quantify it in a way that is beyond reproach. And then you have to have done this in the past, and you have to work. And again, I can't do it by myself. So as a technologist, I must be surrounded by people who understand their game. And again, no sacred cows, are willing to change. It's my job then to take that trust, harness it, and then turn around and, I think we use terms like cost benefit, cost avoidance, savings. There's lots of vernacular. But you have to quantify that based off of what they've done in the past. Because if you keep doing this bad thing, and here we are today, I promise you, change nothing, and you will continue to do this. So why don't we put these changes using these technologies? And by the way, we have levers now. We can throttle change. And again, working with brilliant people like yourself and Rich, we can step into the true economics. We can we can stretch gap a little bit. Okay, we can push the boundaries of best practices and enable business leaders to actually adopt and give them that soft landing. At the same time, allow them to be the visionaries and be the heroes that they should be.
So the title of our podcast is All Things Circular. We've had some really good dialogue to this point around what AI and ML is. Can you talk to me about the application of using artificial intelligence to solve reverse problems? What specifically have you been able to do to help impact either compelling returns down or driving up returns?
Sure.
Wielding AI is like nunchucks. It's hard to do, but if you see someone do it, it's super cool.
Sure.
Talk to me about how AI is able to go through and impact.
Okay. Well, let's bind ourselves to your world, the beloved infinity loop. Okay. So everyone break out their books. Page 3. No, step 3. Step 3 is my favorite step, completely.
So let me preference, if we really haven't talked about the product lifecycle loop methodology. So for those of you who haven't read the book or who fell asleep in the first 3 pages, which is not uncommon, the product lifecycle loop, think of an infinity loop. You got a product in the middle. Forward logistics goes to the point of use. So through manufacturing, selling to the customer, using it.
Yes.
And then the loop starts to turn when a customer makes a decision that they want to return something, either for a bad reason, like I bought 3 and I only need 2, or I bought the wrong size, or I bought it and it broke and there's a warranty. Then it starts going through reverse logistics away from the point of use. Asset recovery through the process of getting it back. Operations through the process of assessing cosmetic and functional value. And then value generation as it goes to the next point of use, keeping the product on an infinity loop, going from the first customer to the next until the cost to reuse is greater than the blended benefit.
Yep.
And then at that point, the product should be responsibly recycled. So the infinity loop or the product life cycle loop is what you're referring to. So tell us a little bit more.
Yes. So when you get to, okay, so what's happening when you're coming around to the top, you're getting to a step 3, and that's where true economics have to come to bear. Okay, let's back up a little bit, because how do you get to that point, and how do you get to the best outcome? That's what's really critical here. And again, a lot of this is still visionary, right? This is because as a technologist, you're asking me if I can measure this, I can do that. That's the conversation always. So unfortunately, it's too late because we didn't measure that. So we can decide not to measure it ever, or we can decide maybe tomorrow we should start measuring that. Let's track that. So Tallgrass, again, we created the first digital passport that could really, truly scale at high velocity. So I'm talking again to brilliant people, and I'm saying, well, yeah, let's just start measuring that. And what are we measuring? Okay, in other words, when we build something, we're going to get down to the building material. And I want to know everything about that building material, all the chips, the precious metals, everything about that. So I'm going to create a value, basically a value for that part, that building material through its life cycle. Now, it's not going to be worth as much as a brand new one, but eventually, guess what's going to happen? They will cross. And what's going to happen? It's going to cross at a point of a life cycle to where it's actually worth more today, earlier in the life cycle, than if we completely ignore it 2 years later, and now we're left with a bunch of chiclets that have to go into the garbage. So now here we are again. We're at step 3. We've done the right things, and I have a digital passport. I can tell you every single thing about that serialized part, and I can tell you about all the components deep inside the building material that I've already told you is worth something. So now I can compel the best value for that building material. And remember, a lot of times this is a working unit. And we know that some of the most difficult things today is in manufacturing or in repair service operations. I am allowed to take a used part and supplant a brand new part in fixing something. So you see, it feeds this perfect blend of opportunity where
If there's a customer promise of a certified like new
precisely
instead of a new, then it's appropriate to go through, refurbish something, and keep that part in production.
Yes. So what does the intelligence look like when this is all happening? So now a lot of people speak of like agents. So in this particular part, this place, the agent, sometimes it's very complex. Sometimes I may be working with a very complex switch to where we want very complex test bench data uploaded in AI.
Define an agent real quick for those that don't understand that term.
An agent is a friendly way of putting a highly technical capability, a highly technical outcome with all of the data required to make the best outcome on the spot.
So it's an aggregation point, basically.
It is, and as you can imagine, how do we interact with another AI? Well, you can have GPT spark up a conversation with another version of GPT, and it'll talk all day long with each other. So imagine that you have this integration capability now to where, but then instead of just going and daydreaming, which AIs will do, it's very strict. This is your job. This is your job. So these exchanges happen very, very quickly and extremely efficiently. But more importantly is with the product passport technologies, at least that Tallgrass supplies, is you're going to be a know-it-all at the BOM level. And so when we do upload this information, and again, this is where bold leadership comes in, because we have to turn around and now bind that to better SLAs, better agreements. We need to push accounting methods further. We have to ask our customers that, hey, just because you tried it on doesn't mean it's used. Okay, this is a culture that has to follow us here. So some of the improved outcomes is something like, here's an exchange. Hey, this is an in-warranty piece of equipment. Would you like me to?
No. It was just a profound thing that I think you said that I want to restate in simple terms. You hit on the challenge of leveraging new technology to enforce legacy or old processes, when this is a perfect time to go through and challenge everything.
Absolutely.
To see if you can build a better solution.
Because remember I said culture.
Yeah.
So it could be our friend, but we have to allow our culture to shift. And that's what's great about the younger generation. There's a brand called Supreme out there. And I think I was listening to you today, how our teenagers and younger adults, they're looking at something because they know they're going to sell it. That particular brand, I'm giving them a nice plug, actually appreciates. They call it, they're waiting for the drop. And if they can just get a sticker, they know that sticker is going to be worth $10 tomorrow. So again, I'm rolling things back to 10 years ago, that when they were doing these things. So these kids, they're in the game, and they're waiting for us to give them, I think, a landscape where they could actually win with it. So it's up to us.
I think that's really interesting. The other thing, I kind of want to zoom out just a little bit.
Sure.
Because, Rich and I both have experience with organizations that, have sold products. They may know where they are. They may not. They may know what version they are. They may not.
Yeah.
They certainly don't know what value they are. So you're going down, as you've expressed, you can actually go down to the metals and the value of the metals within the machines.
Yeah.
But just to zoom out on that and to take it to a very almost basic format, I think what blew me away when I first saw the Tallgrass solution was the ability to go in with minimal data to begin with and say, okay, you have got X, Y, and Z within this customer base here.
Yeah.
You've got demand here.
Yep.
You don't have demand there. And I think for me, it is the time and the cost of wasted effort and energy where you've got two parts of an organization trying to match and they're trying to solve a problem that actually, with minimal data, your solution can tell them if it's going to fail or not. And you have a great way of describing this with black, white, and grey. So, I mean, Michael, I'd love you to tell our listeners a little bit about how black, white, and
Sure.
grey, just in the simplistic terms of profitability and supply and demand.
Sure. So first, where are your children? You'll be surprised. So the Tallgrass systems are really based off of the actual generic or just natural movement of information. So a billing system has lots of business rules. It's designed to bill and account. So first, you have to know where your children are. And I've been in many very large Fortune 50 companies where they'll claim our asset base is 32 million. And I'll look over my beloved system. I say, no, you actually have 45 million assets, by the way. We'll find out there's a million reasons why this happens. But when you finally do rationalize the world, okay, you do need to be able to very quickly segment. Okay, and again, if you want a black gray, there's lots of rules. What's the improved outcome? To be honest, what's really cool about what we do now is I don't have to really sit down and do whiteboard, and I'm going to sit down. We're just have a very humble conversation over a cup of coffee, and you should know this answer. If you are the business leader that you are, what is the improved outcome? What if you could improve something? What would it be? And see, at that point, then we start segregating into brackets. Black, it's too late. And by the way, we're going to get you 6 months into the future here. Okay. And and here's the thing, we're going to future proof this. And we're also going to make sure that your boundary partners can participate in a meaningful way. You're not just going to be siloed with a great idea.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I've heard at one point artificial intelligence being described as a solution in search of a question.
Yep.
And one of the things that really attracted me to the work that you were doing, looking at genealogy of billions of serial numbers across hundreds of different data points and categories. What I loved, what I saw, was the fact that in our world, we used to go through pull reports, analyze the reports to find out what conditions were true, and then make decisions based upon the output of what we read. What I learned with artificial intelligence is the data can not only be accessed real time to compel behavior, as opposed to being pulled on a report, but the things that you thought were true when you got the desired outcome. I want to reduce my return rate by 3%. I want to improve my velocity by 45 seconds. But when you feed that question into the machine, then the crunching starts happening to say, hey, when we did see that reduction in 45 seconds, these things were true.
Sure.
If we didn't see that reduction, these things were not true. So let's create, you call it APC, an alert when something goes out of variance, a prescription, what you need to do next, and compliance to make sure that that activity has been done.
Perfect.
So really cool to see how artificial intelligence and machine learning are used. And we're seeing it right now to drive significant cost out of major manufacturers' repair
Mhm.
loops. Tallgrass is at the forefront of change and innovation.
I think it's not just cost, it's efficiency.
Yeah.
And I know efficiency is a cost, but for me, it's taking away
Yep.
those questions, those, oh, this should fit, it doesn't quite fit, I don't know why. Because these are multiple data points that drive a decision
Yep.
that ultimately you can rely on. So, it's the speed, it's the efficiency, and it is the accuracy.
Absolutely. I think one way to really think about this is we'll sit down with a process, and this is a very robust and mature process. And what we'll do is we'll say, okay, show me all of the outcomes. Show me all the outcomes. Okay, it's this part by this vendor, by this market. Wonderful. What's the best performance pathway you have ever achieved? And let's do that to every single combination. And guess what we find typically? What do you think what do you think a percentage would be of any company doing the best thing all the time? Take a guess.
I don't
The
know.
percentage of the best company doing the right thing every time,
It's got to be low.
3%.
Yes, that's 4 to 3 at best.
Well,
But-
no.
But now just think about what we had.
That's how many mistakes I made.
Oh yeah, you're not gonna plot me. But imagine what the power of that. Guess what that is? That's now our benchmark. That's how terrifying is that. So now everything that isn't to this is unoptimal. So I'm just going to tell you right now that 97% of everything you do is unoptimal. That's a terrifying thing. But now if you can actually step into the process again, that's what Tallgrass is very, very, very good at. It's splitting the hairs. And not only that, imagine the amount of data that's going to come pouring out of what's not optimal. How do you digest that? How do you consume that? We also have the ability to, we look at the inequality. So in other words, what is the 2% that is unequally impacting you? And there's a velocity concept in that as well. So you're constantly looking at, my goodness, if I just do this one thing, I can impact the 15th percentile. And that's
I love that.
now you see, now it's getting, and now that this rinse and repeat.
But it's step by step, isn't it?
Yes.
It's step by step.
Yes.
Because if you go from the 3 to 4% to your 15%, that's a huge change. Look at the size of some organizations.
Yep.
Look at the size of some of these Fortune 500 companies that could really benefit from this type of solution.
And we all have our sacred cows. That's just it. It's the new market. It's where everyone's pumping all the hype into it that this is where we're going to put our energy in. But in reality, it's this small little product over here and this innovative leader that is completely killing it. But they just get buried. So with these technologies, it allows you to see the best and the worst simultaneously.
It's interesting.
Michael, you were able to participate in the masterclass, the special course this morning.
Yep.
3 hours of your life that you will never get back. But you chose to go to that class for a reason. What were some of the reasons why you went, and what were some of the takeaways that you took from it?
Sure. So I think the first thing I really fell in love with when I read the book, your book in particular, you gave me a vernacular to the things I've already been living and breathing. Okay. So it's almost like I have the message. So when I sit down and I listen to people absorbing the message, it's kind of neat because I can turn around and kind of frame their world and potential with something that is more concrete. It's not just my opinion. I don't have to sell my opinion anymore. Now I just have to point to my beloved. It's just like, hey, this is how we influence the infinity loop. This is what our agents do and how. And by the way, this is where you are. So it gives a vernacular. So today I sat next to a pretty young company, and within a minute I looked up their website. I saw what they were doing, and I could probably tell them 20 or 30 things that I know they must do today. And hopefully they come around and I have that conversation. But that's what I really enjoyed.
I think what's really interesting, because I was obviously at the masterclass as well today, and one of the themes that Rich and the team spoke about was how reverse logistics really can foster brand loyalty.
Mm.
And it's not an operational cost. It's a function to help a business grow.
Right.
And what's really interesting is, with that thesis, Orma, of how reverse logistics really is a force of change, a force of good change, a force of revenue,
Yep.
to marry it with something like the Tallgrass solution.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very, very powerful because it does foster that completely new set of skills, that new set of data, that new set of opportunity.
Yeah. It proves that it's okay.
Yeah.
And the culture can be pushed a little bit further.
Yeah.
Well, I know we're getting towards the end of the day here at the first day of RLA, but one of the things that we like to do on this program is ask our guests to go through and bust a myth, something that people either think is true or maybe it was true, but it's not true anymore. So
Okay.
I'm going to give you one, and I'm going to ask you for yours. Your professional opinion,
Yes.
as an expert in AI and ML, was Johnny Five really alive, or was he just a really advanced AI model?
You're going to have to explain that.
Just like kids, Google Johnny Five.
Right. I'm going to say that he's a hybrid of both.
Yeah.
Right. And I think if he's got to be alive, he will become alive. Right. I think we're going to make him.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. What is the myth that you would like to bust?
Oh, gosh. I don't know. I didn't prepare for that. I'm bound in logic and facts. I have no myths.
Yeah.
Oh,
Spoken like a true,
Right? It's something cultural.
through data-driven person.
yes. I try to keep it real.
I think my myth that I'll bust then for you, Michael, is don't be frightened of AI.
I think that's well said. Absolutely. I think everyone is always fearful of change. But my personal humble opinion, and I've worked with, hundreds and thousands of people who have felt the effect of the processes I've put in place. They've only saved money. They've only, especially in the set-top box world, to where a simple signal went to a repair vendor and said, you must scrap, you must repair that piece of equipment. So it doesn't just get clean and screened. We learned that it failed in a new and exciting way, and it's not going to be given to a technician who's going to drive around with it for 30 or 40 days because he's not confident in that box. So the asset degrades. It bounces around, of course, for 30 days. It breaks completely. If someone finally does install it, it's another upset customer. So just one simple point of logic at the right time solved all those problems. So I've only seen benefit.
Yeah, and I think you're hitting a really good point there. And Rich will probably say this more eloquently than I, but time is the enemy of circularity. Don't hold on to things because the asset will degrade, and it will degrade in value. And I think that's a really important thing whenever we're talking about circularity. Time is your enemy, almost.
Very, very well said.
Well said.
Some of my favorite interactions that we've had have been going through and solving problems. A lot of times, a company like Tallgrass that has a solution will go and visit a client and say, help me understand what your problem is, give me your requirements, and I'll build you a solution.
Yep.
The fun conversations that we've had have evolved around us going through and doing discovery sessions to determine what is the current state of your business.
Sure.
Using the infinity loop as a guide to measure out, make, distribute, sell, return through recovery operations, value generation. How is the information flowing? What are the desired outcomes that you would like to have?
Yeah.
And then we're building solutions to go through
Yeah.
and change and update the policies to wield the information.
That's what I love. That's what I love. I mean, that is heaven for me.
Yeah.
Because for me to show something that I can prove to a 98 percentile and not see it done, it just breaks your heart. Yeah.
So being able to go through and help companies update and rewrite their requirements and policies, and then supercharge it with AI and ML has been really fun. Michael, if our listeners want to learn more about AI or ML, or if they have a challenge with a return stream, a repair loop, through trying to go through and introduce intelligent agents, either in an RMA process or an asset recovery process, or when something gets in, how can people learn more about Tallgrass, and specifically, how can they find you?
Sure. I mean, again, I am the founder of one of the core founders of Tallgrass. So, I mean, just come right to the webpage. We're growing, but I still like to say we have that boutique culture. So I am absolutely attainable. I am reachable. And again, we have the classic methods. There's LinkedIn. I actually do respond. I can smell out a bot pretty good. So when I smell a human, I'm pretty much there to be there for him. So yeah.
Oh, that's great. Michael, thank you so much for joining us.
Sure.
No,
Been
it's
fun.
wonderful to actually meet you in person. We've spoken
Yeah.
virtually before now. And wonderful to actually be in Vegas, recording on location live.
Yeah, we did it at your home last time,
We
and
did.
this time you came to the States.
I know.
Perfect.
It was my turn to cross the pond.
There you go. All right,
Well-
Michael, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
For listening.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. Please head over to allthingscircular.com to learn more.